Hello, my name is Welkin Alberto, and my speech will be on how gender and different aspects of gender affects our communication. Gender is something that we're all familiar with and which affects everyone in their everyday life in large or small aspects. Gender can even affect speech, which is something that people don't seem to know. The way gender affects our communication is by the following ways. Gender roles and how said roles allow themselves to express ourselves to others. Femininity and masculinity and how they mold and develop the way we speak and communicate. And then the box societies puts people of certain genders, and which limits and constricts them from kind of going outside of that box. So my first point would be that gender roles affect how we communicate by depicting people in a certain gender are supposed to act and speak, and most importantly, how we express ourselves to one another. Tara M. Chaplin from the U.S. National Library of Medicine writes on their official government website in her article, Gender and Emotional Expression, a Developmental Contextual Perspective, that in several research studies and meta-analysis have shown small but significant gender differences in the expression of emotion in adulthood in the US and Western European countries. So, women express more emotions such as happiness and sadness, and express them much more than men, as men typically don't show these emotions and only really show emotions such as anger and aggression, and they aren't really seen to veer outside of that to express themselves in different ways. And this is largely due to stereotypical view of gender in society, which women are seen as emotional and happy, while men are seen as aggressive to seem masculine and strong. Which leads me to my second subject, which is the concept of masculinity and femininity. Masculinity and femininity are two concepts which depict and mold how one expresses themselves and how we speak. They're based on what a woman and man should be based on society. Alexandra Schwesiga, I butchered that, from the website Tamcord on her article How Gender Affects the Style of Communication, says men have a tendency to interrupt and speak more confidently than women in order to establish leadership and impress their listeners. On the other hand, female communication style focuses on building mutual understanding and support, as well as raising the level of trust and respect instead of dominating their listeners. The elaboration for this would be how women are seen as more emotional, and thus they are seen as more empathetic, and that view affects the way they speak, and they speak in more emotional tones to really feel their listeners, while men speak in more aggressive tones to dominate and to be charismatic, and really that's how they get their listeners. And that limitation brings me to my final point. How boxes created by gender roles and perceived femininity and masculinity limit people and puts them into boxes, constricting their communication expression itself. The most prominent display of this would be in the man box. The man box is described as the term, the rigid set of expectations, perceptions, and behaviors of what is manly behavior. Because it is a hierarchy, homogenic masculinity marginalizes men who do not perfectly fit the description of a real man. This is by the University of Richmond in their article titled The Man Box, which I couldn't find the author for. In layman's terms, this is when men follow strict guidelines as to what being a man should arbitrarily be, and when they diverge from that, they're seen as less manly and more feminine, and that is seen as makes them seem weaker. And those 3 points really drive home how the concept of gender really limits how we express ourselves to others, and the way we can talk to ourselves and express ourselves, and that we should break away from those perceptions to really communicate and feel one another better. Thank you for your time.